I got to tell you, one of the most beautiful things in life is confirmation that you're on the right track in doing whatever it is you do. I have had one of the most beautiful weekends ever this past weekend. I was invited to a cousin's home. She happens to be what I consider to be one of the most efficient and professional attorneys here in Virginia Beach. She specialized in the military and working with the military spouses, active and retired militaries. I was invited to her house. What was really interesting to me is that she remembered my favorite wine. Pinot Grigio? Yes, Pinot Grigio. Isn't that wonderful? Life is filled with wonderful things like that, I believe. I do believe that. One of the most beautiful things about life, I think, is the ability to share. Now, I hope you don't mind if I just talk off the cuff, just without a script. But I wanted to explain that the ability to share is probably one of the most beautiful of all the spiritual giving, the laws, the affirmations about life and about living. And when you find the opportunity to share, especially to someone who appreciates what you're doing, it is wonderful. Needless to say, another one of those great aspects about life and living is something that we take for granted, but we really ought not to do that. I'm talking about intimacy, without judgment, without shame, without guilt, and of course, with absolute and total honesty. It's wonderful. And speaking about intimacy, to me, real conversations coupled with intimacy is probably the best intercourse there is. Back to sharing. I just want to say that one of the things that I enjoy is to share my pictures and my videos. I really enjoy that, just as I hope that you will enjoy what I have shared. The next thing, of course, I believe is the access to books and to information. We no longer have to be stupid and believe in mythology and nonsense. Because of the internet, we have access to the books, we have access to information. We don't have to believe in nonsense. Isn't that great? Of course, another beautiful part about life and living, I think anyway, is that for most of us, we do have food, we have transportation, we have shelter, and we have clothing. If not, we have access to all of those things. I think it's wonderful. One of the reasons why I find that as I drive around, I don't like to see us living in a society where we tolerate homeless people, meaning that they ought not to be homeless. We are rich enough where we could provide for their very needs, all of their needs, without compromise or without payment. People are homeless through no fault of their own. And I think that if you're going to be a generous country, then I think we ought to be generous to those that are less fortunate. That's my personal opinion. Something that I think is really nice, and that is those of us who are fortunate to have true friends. True friends. I read an article about a guy who was very rich, and for some reason he lost all his fortune, so he had to live in a very modest way, in a very modest cottage, very modest way. And his friends disappeared, except for maybe one or two. And those two were not aware of his wealth to begin with. They just liked him as a person. And because of that experience, it made him realize the value of friendship. Those who liked him for himself and not for his money. Isn't that a great lesson? Anyway, I don't have to worry about that because the friends that I have are true friends, and they already know about my modest way of living, as you can see. Anyway, Another one that I cherish is to be within a community of like-minded people. That's a big one. I talked with my cousin Carlos yesterday, and Carlos is one of those people who have traveled all over the world. Carlos and his wife Jane are retired people, and they enjoy traveling. Well, one of the countries that I've not been to is Holland. I've not been to Holland, so I asked Jane, Carlos's wife, what was it like to be in Amsterdam? And she said, it seems to me that all the immigrants that the Dutch people have colonized are coming home to roost. And I stopped and I thought about that. It is true. All the big countries that colonized the smaller countries, now those immigrants are heading up to the motherland. Isn't that interesting? And finally, I know this is running a little long, so I'll get right to it. And this is strictly a personal belief, a personal point of view. But I think one of the most beautiful things about life is to have developed your own belief systems. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about a belief system that is geared, that is modeled, that was designed by you, for you, based upon facts, reason, and based upon all the knowledge and experience that you've accumulated with that hidden part of a belief system, and that is the intuition. With a little imagination, with your knowledge, with your experience, and with intuition, I think each adult should create their own belief system. They no longer have to tie themselves to a religion that once endorsed slavery and now tell you that God has changed his mind. God never changed God's mind. So the best thing to do is to develop your own belief system. And that ends that for today. Thank you so much for listening.